Honourable David Parker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance. Actually, have I got that
order.
correct, Mr Speaker?
Order. Call.
Sorry,
the Honourable David Parker.
No, I see it is to the Minister for Tertiary Education, Skills and Employment. Does he agree with the Mayor of Clutha District that the loss of 180 jobs in the wood processing industry is a, quote, hammer blow to the region?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, no. I understand the Mayor being concerned at the loss of an employer in his district, but despite the tendency of a number of people to talk down the Otago economy, the region is doing very well. The latest household labour force survey shows a net increase in Otago of 8,000 jobs in the last year. 8,000 jobs in the last year. Unemployment in the Otago region is one of the lowest in New Zealand, 4.6% compared with the national average of 6%. The ANZ Regional Trends Report released on Tuesday said that Otago had the highest level of business confidence and one of the fastest economic growth rates in the whole of New Zealand. That's not the opposition's spin, but that is actually what is happening under this government.
Supplementary.
Order. Supplementary question, Order. Honourable David Parker.
Has he not read the ANZ Regional Trends Report, which for the adjacent province of Southland shows that, quotes, Southland recorded the largest decrease in employment, dropping 4% in the quarter to hit a 10-year low, and the region's unemployment rate deteriorated, hitting a 10-year high? Or is that just because their local MPs are Bill English and Eric Roy?
Well, Mr
Speaker,
I'd have thought Mr Parker, as a former resident of the Otago region, would know that the Clutha district is in the Otago region and not in the Southland region. But unfortunately, Mr Parker is not aware of that, which is probably why he was never able to hold on to the seat of Otago, because he never even went there, Mr Speaker.
Order. Supplementary question, Honourable David Parker.
Why has he refused to set any targets for regional development growth in his department's annual statement of intent?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, firstly, again, the member may not be aware, but I would have thought he's been around long enough to know that that is developed by the agency, not by the minister. But the good news, Mr Speaker, is that every region of the New Zealand economy is growing. And every region, if he looks at the ANZ regional trends, is growing strongly, Mr Speaker. That's the reality. And so Mr Parker may obsess about writing down a number, but the real question, and where the rubber meets the road, is job growth and GDP growth in the regions. And the reality is, in Otago, we're seeing very strong growth, which is very good for that region, and I'm very pleased for them. I think it's probably time that the opposition declared an Otago crisis.
Supplementary question, Honourable David Parker.
Why has his government deserted the wood processing industry nationwide, with net job losses of around 3,000 since 2008, when those job losses show the sector so seriously needs an economic upgrade?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, so seriously needs an economic upgrade that an investor went out 2 weeks ago and spent $1 billion purchasing assets in the forestry processing industry. And of course they see a strong future in that industry, and it's ridiculous for the member to suggest that that is otherwise. Yes, individual companies have difficulties from time to time, and the company that was the subject of this question has had financial difficulties for some time. Now, Mr Parker may be of the view that the government should rescue every investor from the challenges that they may or may not operate in, but this government knows the job is actually encouraging investment across New Zealand industries, and the growth figures of New Zealand
now is answered. Supplementary question, Honourable David Parker.
Why is real wage growth forecast to average less than 1% for the next 3 years, according to his own budgets, not rubbish, lower than increases in GDP per capita, and is this because under National the benefits of economic growth can never be expected to flow through to working New Zealanders?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr. Speaker, the member is absolutely wrong. The way you build incomes for New Zealand families is to encourage investment and growth across New Zealand. That is what this government is doing, and we can see that in the growth figures, in the export figures, in the employment figures. We can see it in the balance of payment figures. We can see it in New Zealand's net international liability figures. We can see it across every measure of the New Zealand economy. And the opposition may not like it, but actually we are growing incomes for Kiwi families.
Order. Supplementary question, Claire Curran.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What specific actions has he planned to increase the economic value from the volume of the timber and wood processing industry in Otago and Southland, given that his own department says growth in the region, quote, will depend on the application of capital and technology to natural sources?
Honourable Stephen
Well,
Joyce.
Mr. Speaker, there's any range of things. We have 350, I know the member hasn't read it, 350 serious initiatives in the business growth agenda. For example, one, they are working, 4.6% growth in Otago. Oh, yes, they are working. And the reality is we have...
Order.
Right?
Point of order.
Doesn't want to hear him.
Order. Point of order, Claire Curran.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question was regarding specific actions his department would undertake for a specific industry in a specific region.
Order. The member asked what specific actions, and the Minister rose to his feet and said 350 of them, and talked about the business growth agenda and its application to... Order! I was on my feet. On this occasion, the Minister has addressed the question. Further supplementary questions? Order. Question number 4, Dr. Jan Yang.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Health and asks